Hello everybody, this is video number 2, the second part of my reaction to the novel Dune. There will be 3 altogether in this sequence, and then I'll be topping it off with a reaction to the new movie coming out October 27th by Denis Villeneuve. Should be very exciting. Now, you may recall from the first video, I had read about roughly a third of the book and had kind of a mixed reaction to what I was seeing. The writing I thought was very intriguing. It was very clear. It was very crisp. But the story really did slog along. It was more or less about 200 pages of laying pipe. And that, for a long saga, understandable, but perhaps from simply a point of view of reader engagement, that is a long, hard slog. And I also wasn't terribly thrilled about some of the telegraphing of what was to come in the story, particularly with the betrayal of the House Atreides, who was going to do it, and how all of that was going to play out. So this video is going to take us through about 2/3 of the story. You'll recall that I felt that the first couple hundred pages or so were a bit drawn out. Although the writing was very, very good, I thought that the plot really kind of slogged along. It was a lot of laying pipe, and now what we're looking at is something very, very different. I'm now about 2/3 of the way through the book at this stage. The House of Atreides has fallen, and Paul, Jessica, and the Fremen. This is where the story is now more tightly focused. And all of a sudden, this book has woken up very much like Paul Atreides has. And it is almost like the writer is unleashed now. All of the pipes have been laid, and now we can start really raising the roof on this story. And it really does come alive in meaningful ways. So I want to read you an excerpt. And I think this really demonstrates just how genuinely exciting and immersive the story has become now that we have moved away from all the setup and into really the core story of Paul and his journey. Now, just to set up a little bit of plot here, as you know, Huey provided resources for Paul and Jessica so that they would be able to escape and survive in the desert until such time as they were found by the Fremen. And they have survived a sandstorm and now are about to make a dangerous crossing from one section of rocks to another a few kilometers away without disturbing the worms. And so we are picking up here late in that sequence, but again, this really does a fantastic job of showing you the action, the world building, and also what's going on inside Jessica's mind and Paul's. Rock. She felt it through her feet, the shock of unresisting surface, gaining new strength from the firmer footing. A deep crack stretched its vertical shadow upward into the cliff ahead of them. They sprinted for it, crowded into the narrow hole. Behind them, the sound of the worm's passage stopped. Jessica and Paul turned, peered out into the desert. Where the dunes began, perhaps 50 meters away at the foot of a rock beach, a silver-gray curve broached into the desert, sending rivers of sand and dust cascading all around. It lifted higher, resolved into a giant, questing mouth. It was a round black hole with edges glistening in the moonlight. The mouth snaked toward the narrow crack where Paul and Jessica huddled. Cinnamon yelled in their nostrils. Moonlight flashed from crystal teeth. Back and forth the great mouth wove. Paul stilled his breathing. Jessica crouched, staring. It took intense concentration of her Bene Gesserit training to put down the primal terrors, subduing a race memory fear that threatened to fill her mind. Paul felt a kind of elation. In some recent instant, he had crossed a time barrier into more unknown territory. He could sense the darkness ahead, nothing revealed to his inner eye. It was as though some step he had taken had plunged him into a well or into the trough of a wave where the future was invisible. The landscape had undergone a profound shifting. Instead of frightening him, the sensation of time darkness forced a hyper-acceleration of his other senses. He found himself registering every available aspect of the thing that lifted from the sand there seeking him. Its mouth was some 80 meters in diameter, crystal teeth with the curved shape of crysknives glinting around the rim, the bellows breath of cinnamon, subtle aldehydes, acids. The worm blotted out the moonlight as it brushed the rocks above them. A shower of small stones and sand cascaded into the narrow hiding place. Paul crowded his mother farther back. Cinnamon. The smell of it flooded across him. Many beautiful aspects to this scene, and it really represents page to page what's happening in this book once the story has been unleashed. And that is, we are getting all this wonderful sensory information in addition to going inside the characters' heads. Real suspense here. We get a sense of the changing nature of these characters. We get a sense of them using the powers and the techniques they have been taught earlier, even long before the story itself. And the story really doubles down on that as we move forward, because, as you know, Paul and Jessica will soon meet the Fremen, led by Stilgar, and one Fremen in particular, Jameis, who is offended by an incident involving Paul, will challenge him to a duel to the death that Paul will, of course, win, but not without some considerable tension, as we see Paul utilize those things that he has been trained to do. It is a powerful sequence in the story, and ultimately the one that leads to Paul becoming basically a part of the Fremen tribe. He becomes Paul Maud'Dib as his public name, and Usul as his private name among the Fremen. And this is the point in the story where he really begins his brand new journey. It's also probably likely the end point of the upcoming film, but we'll see when that occurs. So this is really where we are at this point. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and the story has really opened up. If this story had the same kind of compelling page by page immersiveness, I think, from the beginning, I think probably this is the story that would have been the kind of book you read late into the night every night. But definitely this back half has, as I say, really been unleashed. So I'm going to do one more review that will be coming up soon once I finish the book. I'm not going to read the appendices and react to those. So about 250 pages more to go. So until that next time, I'll be seeing you, and please add any comments that you may have down below. Please like, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, that would be cool as well. Until next time, bye-bye.